Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and FPL have dropped some prices, some higher than expected, some a little bit lower than expected, and the question now is, are they worth it? Which players are good value for money and which ones aren't? So today we are going to cover that exact topic. If you do enjoy this one, please do drop a like. Can we hit 1,000 likes on this video? And do subscribe if you're new around here too. Let's have a look at some of these players. So first of all, Mo Salah, 12.5 million midfielder this year, a slight price decrease from the 13 million he was last year, and I think that is probably fair. He didn't have the best season in the world last year, but he also didn't have the worst either. 19 goals and 13 assists. It's actually pretty decent, but it's not quite the elite level of a player like Erling Haaland, and even Harry Kane made these kind of numbers look, kind of bad, when actually Salah actually did okay. Now, the problem is with the likes of some other players who are quite expensive this year and some other midfielders that you might want to be going for who are going to be a little bit cheaper and could potentially even compete with Salah, it doesn't seem like he is going to be 100% worth going for. Now, some of you guys are going to have Salah, some of you guys aren't going to have Salah. The problem is when you look at these opening fixtures from game week 1, Chelsea, Newcastle away there, Aston Villa as well, are you going to ever captain Salah? And therefore, is he going to be worth spending the 12.5 premium price on him if you're not going to captain him pretty regularly? And you're probably not when you've got the likes of Erling Haaland with such an amazing run of fixtures at the start of the season. So will Salah become an option at some point in the season? Possibly. Is he a player that you have to have in game week 1? Well, even though his price is fair, the price of certain other players means that I think we can actually afford to go without Salah in game week 1, but still definitely a player you want to consider having at the very, very least. Now, Nkunku at 7.5 million was a surprise to us all. We all expected him to have a similar price to Timo Werner or Kai Havertz has in the past when first moving to Chelsea from the Bundesliga, which has been more like 8.5 and 9 million. Quite expensive, really. A little bit disappointed that Nkunku is listed as a forward, but that's probably correct. He played as a kind of second striker in the Bundesliga last year, but 7.5 million is very cheap for what is essentially the top scorer of the Bundesliga last year. 16 goals and 6 assists, and that's in just 20 starts in the German league. That is absolutely insane. So we have got a really good player on our hands here. It's been a fantastic player for a number of years. Where's he going to play for Chelsea? Well, possibly on the wing, which is going to mean that maybe he's going to be out of position in the kind of wrong way as he's listed as a forward. So that's, again, a little bit disappointing. But the fixtures are good. After Liverpool, we do have West Ham, but then it's not. There's Luton at home, Nottingham Forest at home, we've got Bournemouth after that as well. Chelsea have some fantastic fixtures, so it may be a case of Nkunku. You can go from him in game week 1, or you could maybe say, all right, let's get the Liverpool game, maybe the West Ham game out the way, see how Nkunku kind of beds into this Chelsea team, and if it's looking good, then maybe we can go for him in game week 3 onwards, and just really take advantage of those really nice fixtures. But I guess it depends on how much faith you have in Chelsea as a team. If you have faith in Chelsea, then Nkunku is going to be a must-buy at 7.5 million, insane value for money. But if you're a little bit cautious, maybe you can afford to wait 1 week or 2. But I feel like we're all going to have Nkunku in our FPL teams this year at one point or another. Bruno Fernandes, 8.5 million. He has dropped down in price quite significantly. He was 10 million last season, and even at that price, a lot of us had Fernandes for large parts of the season. He was actually a pretty decent asset, certainly towards the end of the year. And United this season, they're going to have a good start. They are building this team clearly. They've got some good fixtures at the start of the season. Probably going to have a few new signings before the game week 1 deadline, and it's going to look pretty good for them. And Bruno Fernandes is on penalties. He is a player who plays every single game pretty much. Really, really consistent player in terms of minutes that you're going to get from him. 8 goals, 9 assists. He's not amazing. We can maybe expect a little bit more from him this upcoming season. We know he underperformed in certain periods of the season, and maybe he can improve on that. But the fact that he's 8.5 million, I think it says a hell of a lot. That is an insane price for this guy. This is the kind of the cheapest he's been since he first came to the Premier League in FPL. So even if he kind of does a little bit better, he's going to be well worth it at 8.5 million. He's a similar price to like Ødegaard or, Heung-min Son or other players like that. We were buying Fernandes at 9.5, 10 million last year. I think we can afford to get him at 8.5, surely. Another player who is much cheaper than expected is Mitoma. He is just 6.5 million this year, up from 5 million last year. So he has increased in price, but not quite as much as we were expecting him. 7 goals and 9 assists in not actually that many starts. He didn't really starting for Brighton until the second half of last season, and that's when he got all of his goals and assists and was looking really, really good. His fixtures in this upcoming season are absolutely amazing. He's a player who is, improving and improving. The second half of last season, amazing. We're expecting him to be a real star player for Brighton this year. He's going to play all season, and I think the 138 points he got last season is going to probably look more like, 190, 200 points this season, and at 6.5 million, that is real good value for money there. I think he's going to be pretty much a lock-in for a lot of Game Week 1 teams with these fixtures. Luton at home in the first game is definitely a fixture we've all got our eyes on. Brighton have some really nice opening fixtures. And the only thing that can maybe take Mitoma out of our teams is if we get a Solly March a little bit cheaper. If we got Ferguson a little bit cheaper, something like that. Maybe there's some alternatives for Brighton there. But overall, I just feel like a 6.5 million midfielder for Brighton midfielder. Brighton, an improving team with amazing fixtures. You can't really go too wrong here. A really, really solid buy here, and a player who I think will be in most FPL teams come Game Week 1. Heung-min Son at 9 million, so a real significant drop in price here. He was 12 million last season, can you believe it? All the way down to 9 now. And we know that there is a fantastic player in Son, and he's done so well in the past, in the Premier League and in our FPL teams as well. But last season, he didn't have the best of season, 152 points. But in fairness, I don't think his season was quite as bad as you might think it was. So 10 goals and 6 assists, that's not terrible, that is not horrendous. There are a lot of players who would do maybe a little bit worse than that, and maybe Son's season was kind of on par with Bruno Fernandes in many ways, a similar amount of goals and assists there. Now, the great thing about Son is that he is a player who could come good, and I think if he can come good, particularly under a new system, a new manager, he has got this chance to restart, to reset, play under a super attacking manager now. Let's see what happens next for him. We know he's a very good player. He's got a restart button. Can we see the return of old Son? And if we do, are we going to get him for this bargain price of 9 million? Also, if Harry Kane leaves Spurs, definitely still a possibility. Son is going to be on penalties. Could we see Son moving to the central striker position if Kane leaves? Could Son become the talisman at Spurs? And I know some people say, well, Son is a better player when Kane is, on the pitch with him. But last season, that didn't really seem to be the case, did it? So Son, if he becomes the main man at Spurs, the talisman at Spurs, I think 9 million could be a real bargain for him, particularly if we potentially see him playing out of position as a striker. That is speculating, though. I think we need the pre-season to really get a slightly better idea of that and actually wait to see if Kane leaves or not. But if Son takes penalties, we're talking maybe, you add 5 goals to his season. That's a 15-goal season, 6 assists. I think that could actually end up being pretty good. And if there's more goals for Spurs, that means Son is going to have a nice big share of those goals. Now, Bryan Mbeumo's 6.5 million price tag this season was not as interesting as the fact that he has changed position. So, a forward last season, this season, he is a midfielder. And that's despite the fact that at the back end of last season, with Ivan Toney out, Mbeumo was essentially playing as a striker, maybe a second striker, kind of playing off the right a little bit there. But Mbeumo was playing really, really super far up the pitch, almost in a striker role, which means we are going to see Mbeumo, despite being listed as a midfielder, playing out of position as a forward, and that is very, very nice indeed. We know he's on penalties when Toney is out. Toney is going to be out until January, so we're going to have plenty of time of Mbeumo being the main man, the talisman in attack. He's really improved his finishing at the end of last season. Remember, he's still a very young player, still only 23 years old, so he's going to be still improving his game. So to have a player who's going to be playing out of position, on penalties, playing, very, very far up the pitch, playing for a Brentford team. Brentford are a top half team, remember. They're no mugs. They are a good football team. A top half kind of team with amazing fixtures at the start, starting off in Game Week 1 against a super attacking Spurs team. Then we've got Fulham, Crystal Palace, Wolves there as well. And you get all of this for 6.5 million. Hey, this is pretty much a no-brainer as well. And Bumo, I think, is a really good player to put in your Game Week 1 team. I like this guy a lot. I like this pick. Trent Alexander-Arnold, interesting one. He's gone up to 8 million, and I know some people are disappointed by this fact, but if you just look through all of the players we've just been speaking about just now, well, we've kind of seen that a lot of players have actually dropped in price, and a lot of players are really good value for money, so it's not totally surprising that maybe 1 or 2 players have increased in price as well. They can't reduce the prices of everyone. That would just be insane. And Trent is a player who we have been saying for a few seasons, in fairness, around the FPL community, he probably should be 8 million, and the reason why is because he's essentially a midfielder. 11 assists, 2 goals. These are midfielder numbers, and although Trent didn't have the best point score at the in last season in total, what we have to remember is that was due to Liverpool completely failing to keep a clean sheet for the first 90% of the season. But Liverpool, they did change system at the end of the season and started picking up a few clean sheets. Trent was getting more involved with the goals. He was having more creativity there. He was taking more shots on. He was in better positions. So if you take just the end of last season and presumably the way Liverpool are going to be playing moving forward, well, actually, that is a system and a situation that really suits Trent and makes Trent a really good asset. So we can't just look at the whole season. If we look at the change up in system, Trent is worth 8 million. I would still be willing to pay 8 million for Trent. And I know a lot of people are going to be put off by him, and that's completely fair enough. Particularly if you don't think Liverpool are going to do too well in the clean sheet department, then maybe Trent is not going to be worth it for you personally. But for 8 million, you know, a lot of midfielders for 8 million will be getting similar points to this. So I think this is really still a decent price for him. It's not the perfect price for him. It's not the price we dreamed of from him. I'm sure we would all love it if he was 4.5 million. But FPL doesn't work that way. He's got to be priced correctly. And you know what? 7.5 to 8 million, I think is about right for him. And finally, Erling Haaland. Now, you guys thought you had a 100 million budget for FPL this season. Well, guess what? You don't. You have an 86 million budget because at 14 million, Erling Haaland is still an absolute must-have. A lot of people are disappointed in his price, but that's because a lot of people want the game to be as easy as possible. And unfortunately, we do need to have a little bit of competition in FPL and a little bit of question. Erling Haaland is going to be bought still by 80 or 90% of FPL managers at 14 million. That means he is worth 14 million. You know, if Erling Haaland was like 20 million and people started questioning whether to buy him or not, then fair enough, that would be too expensive. But 14 million is a fair price because we're all going to be willing to pay that for him. We all are. And that should be the case. We should have players who are priced in a way that maybe we are thinking about it a little bit, but it's fair because we would still go for him. Now, if you wouldn't go for him at 14 million, then maybe you do think he is overpriced, and that's fair enough. And fair enough, don't go for him. But I do think I would still 100% be going for Erling Haaland at 14 million. I'm convinced by this one, and the reason is because he gets so many FPL points, and he has absolutely insane fixtures. So if you look at this last season, 11.5 million he started off the season as, but 36 goals and 9 assists in 33 starts. That is absolutely nuts. He's doing far more than 1 goal contribution per game. Far more than 1 goal contribution a game. Like, you know, he's absolutely killed it last season. He's a young player. He's only going to be getting better, as is the rest of the Man City team, who seem to be on top of the world at the moment. They really do. Best team in the world. And they've got amazing fixtures here. Burnley in the opening fixture. We've got Sheffield United there. We've got Fulham at home there as well. There is no reason to go without Erling Haaland, even at this price. And I know some people are disappointed in his price, but since you're still willing to pay that price, that kind of means that it is a fair price. So Erling Haaland, 14 million. Some people will be surprised by that. I'm not. I like this price. I'm liking that people are starting to think and question whether they want him or not, because last season, I was pretty bored of Erling Haaland. Every single person in the whole of FPL owning this player, captaining him every week. Now, I'm not saying I'm not going to do that next year, but at least some people will be questioning it now. Some other price reveals that I thought were kind of interesting. We've got Ødegaard at 8.5, which kind of probably sets the standard for the Arsenal midfielders there. Still, I think that's pretty decent value for money. Those players scored kind of a similar amount to Salah last season, so they are probably still going to be very, very good value at that kind of price. Clive at 5 million could be a decent budget option if you are really, really trying to push it with multiple premium players in your team. Eze, 6.5 million, probably fair. Pickford, 4.5. Probably fair again. If he gets a move to a bigger Premier League team, Pickford could actually be really nice value for money at 4.5. Can you imagine him at Manchester United for that price? Insane. Mitrovic, a little bit too expensive probably when we've got the likes of Nkunku at a similar price. Could say the same thing about Watkins. Nkunku kind of seems to be blowing out some of these other forwards out of the water. Andreas, 5.5 million, probably removes him as a serious FPL option now. At 4.5, everyone was having him at 5.5. It's a fair price increase, but at the same time, you know, we're probably not going to be heading towards him too strongly. Darwin Nunez, 7.5 million. If he can get the right form going and you know, can make sure he is starting and nailed on in the Liverpool team, this is an absolute insane price for him. Robertson at 6.5 does start the debate of whether it's worth just going for Robertson instead of Trent, but in the new Liverpool system, Robertson is pretty much playing as kind of a centre-back, really, so he's not going to be nearly as attacking as Trent, so maybe not worth it. 5.5 million for Morris. He was Luton Town's top scorer last season, so if you're looking for a super cheap forward, that's actually not too bad. Bell at 4 million. He plays as a wing-back for Luton. He's a starting player for Luton, plays every game, and yet he's only 4 million, so you get a starting 4 million defender. That's absolutely insane for your bench. That's exactly what you want. One thing should be mentioned that he's probably not going to start the season because he is playing in an international tournament at the moment, so maybe given a little bit of rest time after that and not starting game week 1, but you're probably not going to want to play him in game week 1 anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. Trippier, 6.5 million is a fair price for him, but with the terrible fixtures that he does have at the start of the season, we're probably not going to be going there straight away, and I can imagine that actually by the time we want Trippier, he is going to be owned by a lot of people. People are going to be disappointing in Trippier's results because of such difficult games that Newcastle have. The Trippier, by the time we actually want him in our teams, could have dropped to 6.4, 6.3 million. So save yourself going for Trippier too early. Get him at a slightly cheaper price if he, you know, concedes a few goals against some difficult oppositions. Could be a little cheeky bargain there to be had. And Gibbs White, I know it sounds like a pretty boring pick, but at 6 million... I think this is actually really good. I think Gibbs White is a really good player, ended the season really, really strongly, and 6 million is a really, really nice cheap price for him as well. I think he could have a better season than he did last year. I think he can improve and improve and improve. I like this one. Kind of like Gibbs White for 6 million. I definitely think there is a nice little differential to be had there, and those guys are the price reveals. Lots more price reveals to come this week, so make sure you do stay tuned on the channel with notifications on, because we're going to do some streams, we're going to do some reactions, we're going to do a lot of build-up to the official FPL launch, and I hope you guys are going to be here for that one. I'm certainly very excited. If you do enjoy this video and you are excited too, please do drop a like, do subscribe if you want more of this kind of stuff. But aside from that, guys, thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.